This is a Tracking the Tropics update with the certified most accurate weather team at First Coast News.
Well, it is currently Friday morning here on the 4th of July, Independence Day. Happy birthday, America. Freedom. We're talking about the tropics, though, here off of our East Coast. Increasing risk of something developing here right over the Gulf Stream, just basically due east of Jacksonville. Now, despite it being so close to the First Coast, I wouldn't be overtly concerned about this. We are going to look at some messy conditions along our area beaches for the Jacksonville area specifically as we head through our Friday evening and into Saturday. But I think the worst of the weather from this system is going to be more of a Carolina problem, specifically around Myrtle Beach. Now, as of 8 a.m., the National Hurricane Center is saying, a 60% chance. And even in the wording of their discussion, they have said that this is likely going to become a tropical depression or a subtropical depression, which means we could be getting a cone sometimes today out of this. Now, if we do get a cone, don't let that panic you. The forecast isn't changing. We are anticipating this to head off towards the north. So, excuse me, we are streaming on multiple social media platforms. If you are watching on any of those where you have the ability to ask some questions in the comments section, let me know. If you're streaming on First Coast News Plus, thank you very much for watching us here. We're always streaming live on First Coast News Plus with more information. We'll be back later on today there as well. So let's get into it, and I'll get to your questions in just a second. But let's get a summary of what we got going on out here. Now, look at this. Doesn't that look like a low-pressure area? Come on, let's be honest with each other. The radar here, and it only sees so far because the radar comes from land-based, but our satellite imagery as well, just showing you this kind of circulation, really trying to tighten up there, basically due east of the Jacksonville area. Even got a little bit of these feeder bands trying to go into it, and almost like outflow aloft in the cirrus off towards the north. A bunch of fancy meteorological words for saying, hey, this is starting to get a little bit organized. It's getting a little bit of that tropical look. It's not a full-on storm at this point, but I would argue that if the National Hurricane Center said, yeah, we got a tropical depression here at 11 a.m. on our Friday, I would go, yeah, I see it. I see it here, just based on what we got going on at this time. Now, Recon is supposed to be heading out there sometime today. The Hurricane Hunters, who, shout out to the Hurricane Hunters. They're all Air Force reserves. They're military, and at least the C-130 guys that are going to be heading out, not so much the NOAA ones. And they're still working here on the 4th of July. I've stood many of watches in the Navy on the 4th. It's never fun. But, somebody's got to do the job, right? Taking a look at satellite imagery. This is an enhanced IR. And, yeah, you can see kind of that tighter look of this trying to tighten up. Now, what does this mean for the First Coast? Well, the good news, we are on the left side of this. We are on the drier side. You still have a couple of these bands, and we still anticipate, look at some of these bands working their way in from the northeast towards the south and west. That is going to help spark up some afternoon showers. We're anticipating during the early to mid-afternoon around the Jacksonville area. But the good news, with all of this northeasterly flow, that all of that's going to shift towards the south and the west as we look ahead through the evening, which means for fireworks, good news. Look at this already by 6, 7 o'clock, a lot of that shifting off towards the south and the west. But let's look ahead. Let's look at our future cast here and the broader picture, because a lot of the convection is on the right side of this. It's the right front quadrant, even pertains not just to big bad hurricanes, but smaller tropical systems. And if we watch this move off towards the north, watch as it comes on shore along the Carolina coastline, likely by Saturday evening, maybe right around the Myrtle Beach area, or could edge a little bit further towards the north into North Carolina. But it's those coastal areas that could be looking at winds 30, 40 mile per hour gust, but more so the rainfall. And I think it's just going to be messy Saturday evening for those 4th of July plans for the coastal Carolinas. And it's not just due to the low level center, but it's kind of these feeder bands and a bit of a training setup. When we say training, we're talking about a train. It's one train car after another. So imagine you're laying on the railroad tracks and the train just keeps moving over you. That's when we say training. And when you get that, you do get these localized areas of heavy precipitation. So it may not be these broad impacts, but it could be these localized on that right side of the storm, the dirty side, as we like to call it. And I know dirty side sounds silly, but it is a terminology. And you know what? I want to bring in our meteorologist, Lee Southwick, and she's going to talk about what the dirty side of the storm actually means.
The dirty side of a storm refers to the area of a hurricane or tropical system where you'll find the highest winds, highest storm surge, and the greatest tornado threat. So what side of the storm is that? Well, generally, it's the northeast side of the storm, or more simply put, the right side of the storm. But it also depends on which direction the storm is moving. If it's traveling in a northern direction, the dirty side will be more on the direct right-hand or eastern side. If the storm is traveling in a more western direction, the dirty side will be more on top of it. So what makes it so dirty? It's all about the wind direction and a little math. For example, if a storm is moving north at 30 miles per hour and has wind speeds of 100 miles per hour, then the storm will produce winds of 130 miles per hour on the right dirty side. While on the left side, winds move in the opposite direction of the storm's movement, so they'll be slower at about 70 miles an hour. It's important to remember, though, as the storm grows stronger, every side becomes dangerous. Meteorologist Lee Southwick, First Coast News on your side.
Is a look at what the dirty side of a storm is. Already seen a comment on our YouTube saying, dirty side. But it is a term, and there you go. And so that is kind of the messier side, basically, simply put. Jacksonville and the First Coast in general is on the non-dirty, the clean side, but I don't even like calling it that because we are still going to have some impacts. And you can see the wind outlook here. So this is our in-house high resolution. It almost looks like an eye trying to form. It's not an eye, but it's the low-level center where the winds are a little bit calmer. It just displays that way on this type of graphic. I just want to note that for you so you're not panicking when you see that here. But it does show these winds. And look at this. This is by Saturday morning. Places like Savannah, 15, sustained, gust up to 20, 30 miles per hour. We even see a few spots here out towards Myrtle Beach and Charleston, seeing those gusts of 30 to 40 miles per hour at times. Not damaging, dangerous rip currents, and with the rainfall, not good beach weather, I'll tell you that. And as I mentioned, I think one of the biggest issues for that specific area along the Carolina coast is going to be the rainfall. So if you know anybody that is maybe vacationing in Myrtle Beach for the 4th, sorry. It's just not going to be the most pleasant of weather out there. And it just feels like almost just perfect on time. It's not until Sunday evening when people would be wrapping up their vacations that this storm is going to head off towards north. Now, here's your forecast models, variety of them. This only pinpoints the low-level center, but it gives you a good idea. It's called our spaghetti models, and it's called that because it looks like somebody just took a bunch of pasta and tossed it right on a plate, right? And then that's where this storm could be going. And basically, low-level center takes it over Charleston, but as I've been emphasizing, I think the Myrtle Beach area just east of Charleston is going to be having the bigger impacts. And whenever you see these spaghetti plots, I do want to stress this. A lot of people like to share them on social. They like to look at them, and they're great, I suppose. But what they do is show uncertainty. So if the spread is over a wide area, which here we're kind of seeing it tighter a little bit, it shows you the more uncertainty. So that tighter means more certain in the forecast. It gives you an idea, and it gives you an idea of the direction of the center of the storm. What it doesn't show you is the size of the storm. It also doesn't show you the intensity, and it doesn't show you the impact. So if we go back to that, it doesn't show you that right front quadrant where some of the worst impacts are. So if you just look at this, you might be thinking Charleston, but Charleston actually may miss out on the worst of this. It's more of those areas just towards the right to the east of where that low-level center is. All right, so that's the Carolinas. We look down towards the Jacksonville area because this is First Coast News. We're on the First Coast. This is Jacksonville. Let's talk about our impacts here. I think the number one thing is going to be the winds along our area beaches. Now, not damaging or anything like that, but let's say you got plans to go out to Jekyll Island. You want to head out to the Fossil Beach, which, by the way, if you've never gone to it, beautiful, just dry driftwood. It's a dead beach kind of, where trees just kind of fossilized. It looks super cool. If you're going to head out there, it's not going to be a good time, though. That water is just going to be smacking up, especially during high tide. Same thing down towards coastal areas into Duval County. For Jacksonville, Jax Beach specifically, the rip current risk is going to be up, but also the littoral current. And littoral is basically that when the winds are blowing perpendicular to the coast, or actually I shouldn't say perpendicular, parallel to the coast. So it's running north to south. Let's say you get kicked out by a rip current and then you're racing towards the south. These are all things that probably heading out to the beach, not going to be fun. I mean, you can stand on the sand. That's not the dangerous part here. We're not talking about a hurricane. But if you're not a strong swimmer, which, unfortunately on the 4th of July weekend, a lot of people want to head out to the beach that typically don't go. And maybe they want to get into the water because they're on vacation and they want to get into the water. And I get it. But just make sure everybody's staying smart. Lifeguards will be out there. Always swim near a lifeguard if you do have to get it. But I guarantee there, especially here on Saturday, there's going to be flags out. And lifeguards are going to be like, hey, don't go in the water. Come on, be smart about this. Let's all get through this safely. We've had too many reports of people getting swept out in rip currents lately. So, yeah, Sunday, the rip current risk will die down, but the winds are going to be offshore as this pulls away, and the winds will be backing off quite considerably. So, yeah, there's a look at our satellite imagery. Before I get a little bit further into this update, let's check out some of your questions. All right, so Jeff, who cares? Jacksonville's not going to get anything as usual. I'm going to call out every single one of these comments, by the way. So Jeff Russo, thank you very much for stopping in. I think people who have plans at the beach care. I think somebody who wakes up this morning and they're going to look at their social media page and they're going to see not us, because we're trying not to hype this, guys. Our goal is to give you the information and the facts and how it's going to impact your day. But there are people that are going to go, a tropical system. I saw on my TikTok this morning somebody who just saw the orange area that said a medium chance of development. And they said, oh, there's a big hurricane developing. And this thing got like 10,000 likes on it. I swear, I just wanted to just flip my table when I seen that. That bothers me. That bothers me. So that's why we care. We're trying to fix that disinformation. Let you know, because people here, they have weekend plans. They want to know. Number one question today has been the fireworks. So we're not going to get hit by a hurricane, Jeff. But we are going to get those coastal winds. So if you got plans, Jeff, to go out to the Jacksonville beach and go swimming in the water, Jeff, I do hope that you are advised, or the people around you know that there is that risk of rip currents out there and that risk of rough surf, Jeff. Now, do you plan on going, are we saying there's going to be widespread rainfall and damaging winds? By no means are we saying that. Even rainfall, to be honest with you, this is shifting off towards northeast. We're going to get those afternoon storms here on our Friday, and likely again on Sunday, but it's not going to be much more different than your typical afternoon showers. It's really about those breezy conditions here as it shifts off towards the north along our coastal areas. So I hope that that answers your question, Jeff, and I'm glad that you're jumping in on here. Gabriel says, happy 4th, doing great. I am happy. Thank you very much for stopping by, Gabriel. 4th of July, near and dear holiday to my heart. I remember growing up, and I loved waking up on the 4th for barbecues and fireworks, serving in the military for, the better part of a decade. Spent many 4ths overseas on the ship where I wasn't at home and able to enjoy those fireworks. So I love it. And I'm going to, hopefully once I get off of work today, I can get out there and enjoy it a little bit. Do you think we are going to have more storms in our coast this season in Jacksonville? It's a good question here. So given the kind of moderate, we're in the medium between La Nina and an El Nino phase. And given everything we've seen so far this season, we're probably going to see more storms develop in the Gulf. So, we could be seeing some storms in Jacksonville, but more than likely they would be coming in from the south and west based on the setup right now. But, we could see some here maybe come from the east. It definitely can't be ruled out. There is overall in our tropical season an above average. In fact, let me pull up our graphic here. Right there. So overall, now this isn't specific to Jacksonville, but overall, we are expecting a slightly above average tropical season. So one of those could impact the Jacksonville area. I don't like to say we're overdue, but Jacksonville hasn't had hurricane strength winds in the city or in the Duval County, I should say, since the 60s during Dora. Yeah, we've had all sorts of other storms. Irma, Ian, we've had just last year a couple. But in the city, we've only had tropical storms. Even Irma, despite all the flooding, and Matthew, despite the gusty conditions along the coast, Jacksonville actually missed out on the worst of it. So I'm not to say we're overdue, because I don't believe in saying that, but it definitely is a possibility, and I think it would surprise people if it did happen here. So good question, Gabriel. I hope that that answers that. Mint says, thanks for keeping us updated. Hey, well, that's what we're here for. And Tanya says, thanks as well. Happy 4th of July. Thank you very much for stopping by, Tanya, and saying something here. We always appreciate it. Let's get back to that forecast, though, and I keep asking those questions here on Facebook and YouTube. I always appreciate you guys stopping by and saying hi. Let's jump back to the forecast. Let's get a little more local. Let's talk about our beaches here in the Jacksonville area. So Jack's Beach forecast on your Friday. Burn time is up. If you got that pale skin like myself and you're allergic to the sun, which is goodness, I envy anybody that can be outside during the high angle months, which is basically June, near the summer solstice, for more than 10 minutes without actually feeling the sun like a vampire burning on your face. Today is going to be one of those days. Rip currents, though, are going to be high. So, you just don't want to moderate to high. So you just don't want to be venturing on the water. And we have that 60% chance of rain. Now, I do think our beaches actually might luck out on that, because a lot of the rain threat is going to shift towards the west as we go ahead through the day. So at least you'll be staying dry. And if you're a boater and let's say you're in some of those, the intracoastal, before these winds do start to pick up tonight. A low tide was at 10 a.m. this morning. High tide's at 4:22. So if you're heading out to the sandbar, the tide's actually rising, which is the best time to go, because that way your boat doesn't get stuck on the bar and then you're out there and it's a hot mess. So, yeah, plus side of things here, so trying to stay positive. Taking a look at those sea surface temperatures, though, off of our coast, they are, that says 74. I think that one buoy is a little low, because we do have water temperatures along the river into the lower 80s. Offshore, where this system is, it is into the lower 80s. Some spots getting closer to the mid 80s out there. So there is plenty of energy coming out of the ocean for the system to develop. And plus, we have that tropical moisture, which is continuing to get pulled out of the Gulf as this shifts off towards the north. So that mid to upper level tropical moisture. And you can even see that here as this pulls away. And then, as we go ahead to Sunday and the Monday, by the way, we still have showers in the forecast for the first coast, because as this moves away, we're kind of going to see this tail, that inflow on the backside of it. Now, is it going to be flooding rains? No. But it is going to continue to bring that tropical atmosphere, cause those temperatures and that heat index to remain high, and that chance of those scattered showers in our forecast here for you. So, yeah, once again, if you're just jumping in to the live stream right now, basically the National Hurricane Center has upgraded this area to a 60% chance of development over the course of the next 48 hours. It's a medium chance. But in their discussion, they are saying that it's probably going to develop into a tropical depression or a subtropical depression, maybe a subtropical storm. That can't be ruled out. And, based on our guidance right now and the warm waters I just showed you over the Gulf Stream, I do think that is probable. If it does become a tropical storm or even a subtropical storm, could be named. It would be called Chantal, Chantal, right there. Our third name storm of 2025. After that is Dexter, then Aaron, then Fernand, then Gabrielle, Humberto, Imelda, Jerry, Karen, Lorenzo, Melissa, Nestor, Olga, Pablo, Rebecca with a K. I've never seen Rebecca spelled that way. Sebastian, Tanya, Van, and then Wendy. There's your names for the 2025 season. Hopefully we do not go through all of those names. Lesser the better, to be quite frank with you. And if you're curious, if it's been a slow start to the season, let's be real and we're not trying to hype things here, okay? So we're going to be honest with each other. It is still, we're starting to get into July. You can see where the peak of season is. It's in September. So July, we do see storms, they happen, but we're not in the active time of the hurricane season yet. So we're still there, we're still early, and even if it is an above average season in the forecast, we're still early on. So we still got time to see a lot of the stuff develop. So going back to our forecast, so with the general look at the tropics here, once again, that 60% chance. If you are specifically in Jacksonville, we do have those afternoon thunderstorms peaking around 12 to 4 o'clock today. But due to that flow with this, basically overall, that northeasterly flow setting up, any storms that do want to develop here, you can see this by 2, 3 o'clock, around the left side of the storm are going to kind of drift off towards the south and west. And then this could become that tropical depression. And by the way, I'm saying a lot of terminology here. I'm saying tropical depression, subtropical depression, tropical storm. You're probably thinking, what the heck, weather guy? Tell me, what does all this mean? Well, our meteorologist Lee Southwick here is again to talk about what some of these terminologies mean so we can better educate and we can better communicate with each other when we're talking about the tropics.
Tropical wave is a term you hear frequently before a storm forms. A tropical wave is an unorganized area of storms traveling west out of Africa. These are important to follow because around 85% of major hurricanes begin as tropical waves. Another common term you hear is invest. Invest stands for investigative area. When a tropical wave becomes more organized, the National Hurricane Center will designate the area of disturbed weather as an invest. Each invest is given a number from 90 to 99. For example, Invest 90L. The L tells us the system is in the Atlantic. This also allows the NHC to run ensemble models or spaghetti models on these systems. You might also hear the term cyclone during hurricane season. A cyclone is a blanket term for any area of low pressure that has a closed circulation. Hurricanes, tropical storms, and tropical depressions are all cyclones because they are closed areas of low pressure. Meteorologist Lee Southwick, First Coast News, on your side.
So this area, thank you very much, by the way, Lee. Always appreciate those infographics there for you. This area, though, is Invest 93L. If you're curious, if you hear that nomenclature and you're going, I thought this was supposed to be Chantal. Before it becomes a name storm, it is that Invest area, and it's 93L. All right, so one other thing I haven't mentioned yet, and I just want to kind of point this out. So the coastline of the Carolinas actually just had a marine... Ooh. You're good. So Malcolm, our producer behind the scenes, just hitting those buttons. He's doing a great job, though. Everybody give Malcolm a little bit of love. So the coastline of the Carolinas, we do have that marine warning that's in place due to possible tropical... I shouldn't say tropical, possible water spouts out there, actually. And it does look like there may have been some reports, but at least there is that marine warning in place. The issue with any tropical system that is coming off the water and then moves on shore, you get a little bit of shear, get a little bit of friction once it hits the shore. We could start to see water spouts and maybe some of those come on shore, which would make them a tornado as we go ahead through Saturday. Now, I'm not saying there's going to be tornado warnings, friends, but it is a threat anytime we talk about the tropics and a tropical system. I don't think it's a very terribly high threat, but I did just see while we were, that little package was running, that the marine warnings were issued out here in the Carolinas. So their local National Weather Service deems it enough a threat that they're putting out warnings for water spouts off the coast, which, as this only strengthens and maybe this low gets its act together a little bit more, we're going to see that increased risk of water spouts possibly shift as those bands shift down towards the First Coast, or at least into southeastern areas of Georgia. So once again, if you're going to Jekyll Island or Brunswick or anything like that, and you're thinking, I'm going to go out to the beach, I mean, it's going to be windy, there's going to be rip currents, and now we're talking water spouts. Not a great beach weekend, right? All right, before I let you guys go, of course, we're going to do one more look at some of these questions, and I always appreciate you guys jumping in and asking them, You guys are awesome. Thanks for answering, Gabrielle says. Tanya says, happy 4th of July. Same back to you. I don't really have too many questions on our YouTube channel, which don't forget, if you're watching on YouTube, you can always ask those questions. We always love to hear from you. But we just had one person, talking about the dirty side of the storm out here, which is offshore and definitely the messier side of things. So I hope I answered some of your questions here as we continue to track this tropical low. It's an Invest 93L, possible tropical depression, whatever you want to call it. We've been lovingly calling it the blob because of this graphic right here, just kind of this little kidney bean off the coast. Once again, before I let you go, things I want you to take away from this. We are not saying this is going to be a hurricane. So if somebody on your social media feed says, hurricane's coming towards us, no. Okay, deep breaths. 2, it's moving away from Jacksonville, but some of the outer rain bands, maybe parts of southeastern Georgia, could still be impacted by it. We're still going to look at afternoon showers, but I think the bigger issue is going to be those gusty conditions along our coastal areas of the First Coast. That includes Jacksonville Beach, but more so southeastern areas of Georgia, where we could be looking at some rather blustery weather, 20, 30 mile per hour wind gusts. Not damaging, but definitely ruin your beach day and rip currents and all that stuff out near the coast. The broader impacts, the worst of the impacts with this, are not going to be in Jacksonville, but there will be maybe some training, some windy conditions, and definitely messy weather for our friends into the Myrtle Beach area, South Carolina, North Carolina coastline, as this comes on shore as we go ahead through your Saturday evening. So not trying to hype this. This is the real facts with this as we watch this area start to spin up. Still going to be looking a little messy along our beaches, but let's say you're in Lake City. This is not for you. Even downtown Jacksonville, yeah, a little windy. Fireworks are actually going to be drier because of the development of this system pushing all the storms towards the south and west. So always keep that in perspective. Always continue to check back in. And hey, Hurricane Central is updating on firstcoastnews.com with the latest and greatest information. We got satellite radar models and all that good stuff there for you if you do want to get more information and you want to be your own forecaster as well. As always, though, if you have any questions, though, shoot me a message on social media. You can still post it here on the Facebook page or shoot me an email. I don't care. Whatever you want to do. All right. As always, thanks for watching. Stay safe out there and continue to check back in at First Coast News Plus.
This is a Tracking the Tropics update with a certified most accurate weather team at First Coast News.